Welcome to Bubbler.
Well, hello and welcome to bubblerpodcast. Bubblerpodcast is committed to providing water cooler conversations to make you the life of the break room and office party. Kerri, the Starsky to my Hutch, the Murtaugh to my Riggs. How the heck are you today?
Oh, I'm so good. And you know what it is? It's fall. It's football season. I feel like the last time we spoke may have been football season. It's been a long time. I'm excited to chat today.
Yeah, I'm real excited about our new season, and we're gonna have some fun. So let's do something I think's kind of fun because it keeps popping in and out of the news. They're trying to do these resurgences and different takes on it, mixing retail with condos and restaurants and all this fun stuff. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the mall.
The mall.
We're going to call it Let's Go to the Mall. I had a long history of the mall, and I'm like, you know what? That's what Google and chat's for. Here is my very brief history of the mall. From ancient marketplaces to today's mega centers, malls have always been about bringing people and shops together. The first modern enclosed mall opened in Minnesota in 1956, kicking off decades of food courts, movie nights, and endless window shopping. While online shopping has changed the game, malls are reinventing themselves as community hangouts with dining, entertainment, and more. Do I think we've seen the heyday of the mall? Probably. I kind of like some of the new takes on what's going on out there. What are your thoughts before we talk about the mall and its impact on our lives?
I mean, nothing will be like the mall of the 80s, obviously. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's been interesting to see, some of the resurgence of what's going on. I think a part of the problem with the malls is the anchors, right? So most of the malls of the past always had like your big anchor stores, right? I don't know what you had. I had in the Northeast Sears, Lord and Taylor, and I had Filene's, which was very much a Northeast brand. And I don't know what you had in the Midwest, but I feel like the department stores are what got gobbled up. So I think pretty much everything got bought out by Macy's pretty for the most part. And then, of course, you've got your Nordstroms and some of your more high-end retailers. Once those big anchors started to kind of fall apart, then everything inside kind of suffered because they didn't have the dollars to keep everything going. And then you see the Dave and Buster's and some of the more entertainment on the anchors now that are picking up some of the space, but some of them have kind of retained luster. Have you seen some of the videos of the abandoned malls? Where
Yeah,
there's like yeah.
those are really interesting. And I think at least one of the Day of the Dead films
Mhm.
took place in a mall. I think it was Dawn of the Dead. That was when malls were still an active thing, and you saw these malls overnight and how scary they could be. That was an ongoing piece of several films. And then now you see just these kids sneaking into a mall with their phones. I almost said video cameras. They shoot these great YouTube videos. It's really surreal and kind of depressing. I can only watch one every once in a while because it kind of does bum me out. And the first time I saw it, there was on Vice. There's a great series called Abandoned. They did one about Route 66, the old Six Flags by Katrina. And a lot of the episodes they did like 7 years ago have since turned into films of these. And I just saw a great documentary about the Six Flags that was impacted and closed by Katrina. That was just crazy. But these mall videos, these kids just get out with their phones, and it's tough to watch sometimes. It's like,
It
it
really
depends what kind
is.
of mood you're in when you put it on,
Yeah,
right?
it makes you really sad. So, there was a video, I don't know if it was keep wanting to say it was a Trader Joe's, but it couldn't have been a Trader Joe's. Oh, it's still attached to the mall, but the mall's abandoned. So,
Yes.
there are, like, these windows where you can see the abandoned mall from a window, but there's no entrance into the mall anymore. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you
Yes,
seen that?
I've seen a mall in the Midwest that's like that. The anchor became a Target much later when they were trying to revitalize it. I think it had gone
Oh,
from
yeah.
being like a J.C. Penney's or Sears to a Target, and the mall had this very quick resurgence of like 4 years. And then just the Target was open for years. Like, I want to say 10 years after the rest of the mall before it finally shut down. And so you had this still standing empty mall attached to a Target.
I don't think
And
it'd be spooky.
it,
It's very, very Octobery.
well, I will tell you, in downtown Indianapolis, the same thing. They built this great mall, a lot of nice anchor stores. I think Nordstrom's was one of them. It was a big resurgence in the, I want to say, 90s, and it made it through to the early 2000s. Then there were just like five shops not next to each other that remained open the last couple years of this huge enclosed mall. So you would walk by where all the empty shops were to get to the one open one. And there was this one store that wouldn't let go. And it was in Indianapolis Colts. It was their official fan shop. So
Oh,
people
yeah.
would drive downtown whenever something, these diehard sports fans, whenever there was a certain New Jersey release or whatever, and stand in line to go into this one open store in a mall. And it was in the
Yeah.
corner. It was freaky.
It Yeah, it really is. It's so strange. Actually, though, there are some malls that seem to have kept themselves pretty much together, but then you wonder, like, I was in Houston, a couple of months ago, and we went to the Houston Galleria. I got confused because there was literally 2 Louis Vuitton stores, 2 several high-end stores, and I was like, "That's what's carrying this place, but how are they even are they even selling enough
There were two
to
Louis
be worth
Vuitton
it?"
stores
Yeah,
in the same mall.
yeah, yeah, there were 2 Golden Goose. It's a huge mall. I don't know if you've ever been to that Houston Galleria, but it's gigantic.
Yeah, so let's do this. Let's talk about the mall in the 80s, because that's really
Yes,
the
that is the
late
best.
70s through the 80s, the Gen X era of the mall. It became, for some people, and this is where I want to see if we had the same experience. For me, it was the first social hub outside of the playground. I mean, or the neighborhood. It was the first place that you could go. Mom and dad would drop you off to hang out with friends.
So as you talk about this, how close was the closest mall to you? Because I think that makes a difference in the frequency.
Closest mall to me was maybe 20 minutes, probably 15, 20 minutes. Everything seemed so much bigger back then, right? And there was such a huge variance at what age your parents would let you do this. My very first mall date that I can think of, was a double date, the girl I was supposedly, remember the term, we were going together or whatever, her and her friend, and then me and my friend were dropped off separately and then hung out for, let's say, 3 hours at the mall. That for me, I believe, was fifth grade.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
Hanging out at the mall all the time was probably more like seventh grade.
Okay, so my mall was probably closer to 30 minutes away, so we didn't go as often, but I wanna say middle school, we would go and hang out at the mall. Dates, I don't remember doing any dates at the mall at all. But we also had a small movie theater that was in our town. Like, there were a couple of restaurants right near the movie theater, so that tended to be where we
Okay.
all hung out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because that's a big difference. I'm glad you brought that up. For me, there was half of our movie theater was in the mall. It had like 4 screens in the mall and then like 3 screens out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
had to pick a movie in the mall. Your parents wouldn't even let you walk across the parking lot. And they wanted to know what movie, what time. It was actually the entrance to the movie theater was in the mall. So that definitely would make a difference.
Okay, so the makeup of the mall really made a difference depending on where you were in the country because the mall that I would go to did not have a movie theater at the time. Now, there were movie theaters in that area, close, but not attached to it. And the other thing that I will say, and you started talking about this before, but you mentioned earlier when we were talking about arcades. So tell me a little bit about that because I can, with 100% certainty, tell you I never saw or stepped in to an arcade at the mall, ever.
Okay. See, my mall was designed to suck us in to consumerism in the biggest way possible. So I kid you not. So you walk into the main entrance of our mall. To the left immediately was a Camelot Music. So you got your record
Okay.
store right away. The guys love the record stores. The girls would tolerate them. I think today, I think anyone would jump into a record store. I don't think there's the vision it had back then. It was almost like it was in a breezeway entrance. Then you actually step foot into the main waiting section of the mall, the lobby, so to speak. You had to the right, that was where the movie theater was, the indoor movie, entrance that's inside the mall. To the left, directly across from the movie theater, you had a Farrell's ice cream parlor, which was like pre Chuck E. Cheese's showbiz style entertainment eating. And
Oh.
then to the right of the Farrell's ice cream parlor was an Aladdin's Castle, which was our arcade. So you didn't even make it 30 yards inside the main entrance of the mall before you were hit with a preteen teen assault. I mean, it was everything you wanted back then: records, movies, food, video games. Are you kidding me? So it was all like bam right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I my first experience with malls was always going with my grandparents at Christmas time, either the Filene's or the Sears, which I can't remember. Back then, department stores had restaurants in them as well, and they were like multi-level. We would always go. That's why I think I remember the anchor stores so well. That was my first experience. And then after dinner, we would go into the mall and we would be able to buy things for Christmas. So we did like our Christmas shopping. That was my first real experience, was more on that level. And because it was further away, you'd have to get a couple of kids, say, "Hey, can a couple of moms take people to this particular mall to hang out?" Now, we did that too, but it wasn't until much, much later. I would say for me, the mall experience was very much about going there to purchase things, not to hang out,
Yeah,
if that makes
that is
sense.
crazy. It's funny you said that because when I was going to actually shop, that was when I didn't go in that main entrance. I'd go into the exterior entrance of one of the anchor stores. And earlier you mentioned when Macy's started gobbling everything up. My favorite anchor store at the time, before we had our upscale mall, was LS Airs, and Macy's did purchase them, put them out of business. And our other anchor of that type was Lazarus. And I think that was regional as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I remember when I moved to Texas, and I've been in Texas now for 20 plus years, but I remember the malls were still somewhat put together. So as soon as I got to town, I had to find the mall. I remember there was Merv's and Foley's were a couple of the names, and they were very unique to this particular area. So I think I had looked up at one point, the biggest department store, which I think is Macy's, and it named the various department stores over the years, and almost all of them had been bought out by Macy's or just unfortunately, went bankrupt.
Now that you said all that, I do remember that the original mall, the anchors were not those designer stores or those upscale department stores. Those were built in the middle as anchors. The actual anchors, where you had an anchor on each side of the building, they were J.C. Penney's and Sears.
We were Sears and Filene's. We didn't really have a whole lot of J.C. Penney. I know we had them, and they weren't as popular.
Those two companies started struggling first before the LS Airs and the Lazarus types and the Macy's. The shops around those ends of the mall suffered. Like those were like where the flickering fluorescents were
Yes.
down at those ends. And,
Yes,
and
I
I
remember. Oh my
remember
god, yes,
and I
you're right.
remember when the Sears closed and there was like a couple stores down there and they were terrible stores, kept closing one at a time. And the one tiny little store that was open was the cockroach of all malls, Lids.
Lids.
Lids will not
Is Lids
die. I
is
don't
Lids
know how
still
they're in
open?
business. I think
Are
it's
they still
money
open?
laundering. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god.
I
Lids. It's a lid for something for sure,
I'm
but
telling you, it's a money laundering scheme, allegedly. Don't come
Allegedly
see me.
lids.
And
We're
the
just
reason I think of
joking.
that is I managed a small video store, like a mom and pop, and Blockbuster was doing, starting to come in and gobble everything up. And then there was another one that came out to compete with Blockbuster called Red Giraffe. They just grew like freakishly quick. And the owner of
What's
my little
that?
mom and dad's video store would always go, "That Red Giraffe, that's just the cartel laundering money." And he was so
What was
bitter.
that?
It
Giraffe.
was a complete rip-off of Blockbuster. It was just called Red Giraffe, and instead of blue and
Oh.
gold, everything was red. It was red and
Oh,
white, I
that's
think.
funny.
But
I've never heard of that.
he said it was the cartel laundering money. There was no way. He was this great character, and he hosted like a public access show about classic movies. So he was so passionate about what he did, and he was just convinced that these were just money laundering schemes that were running him out of business. That could be another episode as well. So since we had different experiences, we'll talk stores here. The one thing I want to go through, since we don't really have this to compare to, is I want to talk about the mall date and what it was, since you really had that separate movie theater. For us, typically the first ones when we were allowed to do it were double dates. So you and your buddy, one of your parents would drop you off at the mall. Your date and his date would go together. You'd meet somewhere. Being dumb guys, we'd normally go, well, let's meet at the arcade, because what fourth grade girl or fifth grade girl doesn't want to meet at the arcade? Then we'd go to the movie because it wasn't quite dinner and the movie time yet. That's when you would hang out and check out the different shops. Didn't really have much money to shop with. Your parents gave you enough to buy your date popcorn and a soda. That was your budget. So you were really window shopping. That's where the stores come into play, right? Because you had to find stores that you could both walk through and that were fun to go to, because no guy wants to spend too much time in Express. So what were your 3 favorite mall stores?
As a teenager, I can picture the order. So I would go to Benetton, then I would go to the Limited and Express when I was a teenager. Those were the top 3. Oh, and Esprit. I forgot about Esprit. Actually, it would be Benetton, Esprit.
So again, you're going to buy stuff. You're not hanging out.
No, I'm going to buy. Buy.
You're on a
Only buying.
mission.
I'm
Yeah.
buying.
Yeah, see, so my list is completely window shopping, right? Mine was Camelot Music.
I feel like it's so foreshadowing of our lives, though, honestly.
Yeah, really, it is. I really, what I think was the one for the mall dates, and just it was fun, and sometimes you could get something small there. Spencer Gifts.
Oh my God, I hated that store growing up.
Are you serious? That store had everything. It had
It was a
posters.
boy
It
store. It was a boy store.
had
It
the
was
strobe lights, it had the music, it had the
a boy
T-shirts,
store.
and then of course there was always the off limits adult toy section.
It was a boy store.
Maybe, I don't know. I think most of my early small gifts from girlfriends were probably from Spencer's.
Because you're a boy and we had to buy boy things
Wow,
from
that kind of
Spencer's.
I'm really like, holy cow. It's like one of those things you have to rethink your entire existence. All these girls just went to Spencer Gifts to tolerate it. And
Correct.
I probably should have spent a little more time in Esprit then, I guess. As I got older and the malls got nicer, Spencer Gifts turned into the Sharper Image mall store thing. It was just bigger, better toys.
Yeah. I remember when Sharper Image started, and that was like a big, big deal. Huge. Well, you know what we had, which it was a little bit interesting, is we had a regular mall. And then right down the street from the regular mall was, but it was an outdoor mall. So it was in a circle shape. So all the stores faced to an open area. And you had an anchor, and one of the anchors was actually a furniture store. And the other anchor was, oh, it was probably a Sears or something like that. I can't remember what the other anchor was. Oh, you know what? I think the movie theater was attached. So the movie theater was the other anchor. And so you would go to the mall and hang out before your movie there, but we would be outside, which is really great in the Northeast because it's never cold, which you
Never.
can imagine.
No.
So I remember a lot of dates at that mall. I actually worked at that mall too. We can talk about that too. But so I think
So
a lot of
what
my
age
time was
was
spent
that
there.
mall then? That was high school probably, or when was that?
Probably high school and then after high school.
See, so yeah, you had the courtyard, like I told
Yeah.
you, that main entrance of our mall, that was
Yeah.
kind of the lounging around area. That's your movie didn't start for 40 minutes. You could go to the Farrell's ice cream, or next to it, you play some video games, because that was before movie theaters thought to put arcade games inside their lobby. But yeah, so that's the experience that you had later. That was my mall from the beginning. So restaurant wise, and you can count the high school one. What was your favorite real restaurant in the mall, and what was your favorite food court concept?
I don't remember us really hanging out at the food court as much as just picking up Orange Julius, Mrs. Fields cookies. You could smell it throughout the mall, and it was like right when you walked in the entrance. I think most of the time that I would eat would be just picking things up. The equivalent today of having like an Annie's pretzel or whatever, and never quite going into the food court. So I mean, I remember seeing people go into Sbarro's, and I think we've talked about this before, but I don't eat pizza, so that's not my thing. There's not one restaurant I don't think I could name other than like just your fast food chains that were in there.
Again, I've already talked about the ice cream parlor, and they did try to have a resurgence and bring the Farrell's brand back in Southern California just recently. I think there
Oh,
may still
really?
be one or two left. We didn't have Sbarro's, we had Luca's. That was kind of the regional, kind of like the Hardee's to Carl's Jr. I'm sure at some point Sbarro's bottom up. That was our New York style, terrible, like a Chef Boyardee New York style pizza. I do not think I ever had an Orange Julius. I do not think I've ever eaten an
Really?
Auntie Anne's pretzel, and I've seen these
What?
concepts. Even when I lived in Southern California, I never had a hot dog on a stick. So these are all like huge monumental mall brands that I would walk by constantly. In today's version, I have never had a Dippin' Dots, which
What?
I think is kind of the last key mall kiosk survivor. Dippin' Dots, never had one. And
Really?
so I know, isn't that really kind of messed up? When I got a little older, the high school dates, I think it was the Lazarus. They had a restaurant, just like the Nordstrom's Cafe and the Macy's Cafe. That was the first credit card I ever had, that retail store. And so that was my date. And you could get something really decent. And so it was like an upscale mall date. Still a
Okay.
mall date. I think once we could drive, the mall dates dissipated. So I think our experiences were different, where you're driving out to that outdoor mall and doing those things. For us, the mall was the only way we could socialize until we got our license, because our parents would drop us off. And then once we got our licenses, we did different things. We didn't hang out at the mall anymore.
Yeah, we got dropped off at that movie theater. That was where we got
That
dropped
was
off.
your mall, kind of, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
theater, and then, I think there was a McDonald's, a Burger King, and an Arby's that were right there, and and within walking distance, if you really wanted to, there was an ice cream place that you could go to. I
See,
think.
you're hitting all the same things we did.
Uh-huh.
You're just walking a little more outside. The fact that we had that all so close is probably why people from the Midwest are a little chubby. That's kind of the good or the bad of the mall. And I think that's where we'll go in our next episode. Before I close this up, are there any long forgotten concepts that you wish would come back? Or are there any brands that are still a part of your life that you got from that era of the mall?
I don't know. We talked about my purpose of going to the mall at all times was to shop. Okay. So I think I now have my Sephora's and different places that I go to now to get the goods. A lot. I mean, nostalgia wise, this was actually fun to kind of go back and see all of the stores, the Sam Goodies, and just looking at pictures of the old malls. But I don't think there's anything that I'm like, "Oh, man, I wish we still had that." Now that we have record stores, I think if we didn't have that, I'd probably say a record store would be one that I miss. We were into music. If I was with my parents, we were definitely hitting up the music store. There was definitely a purchase, and we were gonna listen to it either in the car or when we got home, depending on, what we bought. So that would have been the one thing that I would have said, but I feel like now there's so many really great places and really cool places you can go and get vinyl. The posters and the art and all the stuff that goes with it that we kinda lost in the digital time is all coming back, so
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank God for the resurgence of the record stores. If you put a record store and a bookstore next to each other, a cafe in the middle,
Yep,
drop me off at 6 a.m., pick me up at close.
same.
I just thought of this. There is one brand that is still a staple in my closet that I forgot was a mall store, and that's the Gap.
Yeah, it was a mall store, you're right.
It absolutely was. And
It still is, I guess, yeah.
you know me, I wear shorts year round, and the majority of my shorts are Gap shorts. So there you have it. Real fast, let's run through some of those brands before we close. Here are some of the key mall iconic stores.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay.
Starting with clothing and fashion, we have The Limited,
Yes.
Structure,
Okay.
Merry-Go-Round. Merry-Go-Round was probably responsible for 80% of the parachute pants that were distributed in the 80s. True story. Deb or DEB? I'm not
Yep.
familiar with that
Yep,
one.
that was clothing store. You had to be extremely tiny to purchase clothes there
Okay.
back when we weren't as inclusive as we are today. You had to be very small.
Gadzooks, Wet Seal, Contempo Casuals, and Fashion Bug. And
Ooh, fashion bug.
I think some of those go way back and some were kind of on the end. This is funny. Kenny Shoes,
Kenny, okay.
Tom McGann.
Tom McCann.
Yeah.
You know, I had
And
a well, hold on. I had a beef with Tom McCann. Let me tell you about my beef real quick with Tom McCann. So Tom McCann is where we would always go. I bought my clothes, my back to school clothes were at Sears when I was a little kid, and then we go to Tom McCann for shoes, and they bring out that big old measure your foot metal thing, and we'd have to go to Tom McCann, and I always had the ugliest damn shoes. I hated Tom McCann. I hated Tom McCann so much, maybe that even when I worked in the mall, I would go out of my way to not pass Tom McCann because I hated Tom McCann so much. That's my beef. That's my
and they measured your feet like you were too stupid to know your own shoe size. But
Yes.
but you, like, sucked into it, like it was part of the process, especially if you ever went shoe shopping with your parents, and,
Yes.
"Well, he really is measuring right here, so
Tom McCann.
we should go if you want this shoe, we should go up half a size."
Tom McCann.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it was a whole thing. So there you have it, that was the shoe shopping experience. Now back to music and media. Sam Goody, Camelot Music, Music Land, Suncoast Motion Picture Company. I remember seeing those in the Riverside Mall in Riverside, California. Media Play. And then last category, specialty and lifestyle. We have Sharper Image, the KB Toys, the B. Dalton Booksellers, Walden Books, Spencer Gifts, and Hickory Farms. Oh, the joys of
Hickory
Hickory
Farms.
Farms.
Get you a beef stick. Go
That
get it.
right. And here's just a couple of those non-upscale department and anchor stores. You got your Montgomery Ward, your Mervyn's, Sears, Bon-Ton, which I wasn't familiar with. Montgomery Ward went out of business in 2001, Mervyn's 2009. There are still some really weird Sears and Sears appliance stores out there, but not many. Bon-Ton made it the longest. It survived until 2018. Good or bad, the mall blurred the lines between socializing and consumerism. To see and be seen often meant shopping, browsing, or determining what items you were going to save up for next. I remember that was the first time I ever saved for something. It was usually upcoming albums or things like that. But it was our gathering place. It was our mecca, our place to escape from ongoing gaze of our parental units. It was a way to get out from under their thumb, even if they were the ones dropping us off and picking us back up. You know, as far as the mall in my social life, I'll always be grateful. Kerri, I want to thank you for the opportunity to reflect on the mall. And of course, always to escape for the office. Forward to talking to you next time at the Bubbler. Have a good one.
Sounds good. See you later.